The chamber was silent. It was not a normal room. It floated in space, far from any planet, far from any sun. The walls were made of smooth silver metal, glowing softly with blue light. In the center, a giant circular table stood, surrounded by beings from different worlds. Some were tall and thin, with glowing eyes. Some were heavy, covered in armor-like skin. Some did not even have faces like humans. This was the Galactic Council. The most powerful species in the galaxy were here. And today, they were talking about Earth. A small blue hologram floated above the table. It showed oceans, clouds, and Greenland. It looked peaceful, fragile. One alien leaned forward. His voice was sharp. "This is a species called humans?" Another replied, almost laughing. "They fight each other. They argue. They divide themselves. Weak minds. Weak unity." A third one added, "They send messages of peace. That tells us everything. They fear war." Soft laughter spread across the chamber. To them, it was already decided. Humans were not a threat, but not everyone agreed. At the far end of the chamber, one figure remained quiet. He was old, much older than the others. His skin was pale gray, and his eyes were deep, filled with years of observation. He had watched many civilizations rise and fall. He slowly stood up. The room became quieter. "I have studied this species," he said calmly, "for many of your years." Some turned toward him, curious. Others looked annoyed. One of the commanders spoke. "Then speak, but be brief." The old observer nodded. "Humans are not weak," he said. "They are controlled." A few council members frowned. "Controlled," one repeated. "Yes," the old one said. "They fight each other, yes. But they also build. They create. They survive things that should destroy them." He paused. "They have something dangerous." "And what is that?" the commander asked, clearly not impressed. The old observer looked directly at him. "Choice." The room stayed silent. "They choose peace," he continued. "Not because they cannot fight, but because they know what fighting costs." Another alien laughed loudly. "That is the same thing as fear." The old one slowly shook his head. "No, fear runs away. Humans do not run. They wait." That made some of them uncomfortable, but most ignored it. One of the strongest species present, known for conquering entire systems, leaned forward. "We have seen enough," he said. "Their signals are clear. They ask for peace. That means they will surrender." Several others agreed. "Yes. End this quickly. Take the planet." The decision was forming. Then suddenly, a soft light appeared in the center of the room. A new figure was being projected. A human. The room became completely still. The human stood straight, wearing a simple formal suit. No armor. No weapons. His face was calm. His voice was steady. "Greetings," he said. "I am the representative of Earth. No fear. No anger. Just calm. We are aware of your presence," he continued, "and we wish to avoid conflict." Some aliens exchanged looks. The human kept speaking. "Humanity has faced many wars. We understand their cost. That is why we offer cooperation instead." He paused for a moment. "We come in peace." The chamber was quiet. Then a few aliens smiled. Not kindly. One of them whispered to another, "He is begging." The old observer closed his eyes slowly. He understood what was happening. The council leader raised his hand. "Your message is received," he said to the human, "but it changes nothing." The human did not react. The leader continued, "We have reviewed your species, your history, your behavior." He leaned forward. "You are not a threat." A short silence. "Your planet will be placed under our control." The human finally spoke again. "You are making a mistake." It was not said loudly, but it felt heavy. The council leader smiled slightly. "No," he said, "you are simply too weak to see the truth." The human looked at all of them, one by one, still calm, still controlled. "We ask for peace," he said. Then the signal ended. The human disappeared. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber filled with voices again. "Prepare the fleets. This will be easy." No resistance expected. The decision was final. Earth will be taken. Operation approved. As the meeting ended, the old observer remained in his place. He did not celebrate. He did not speak. One of the younger members walked past him and said, "You worried too much. It is just another weak world." The old one slowly looked up. His voice was quiet, but clear. "You did not listen." The younger alien stopped. "What do you mean?" The old observer turned his gaze toward the empty space where the human had stood. "They did not beg," he said. "They warned." A cold feeling passed through the air. "They asked for peace," he continued, "because they were giving you a choice." The younger alien frowned. "And now," the old observer's eyes darkened slightly, "now you have made yours." Far away, in the darkness of space, massive alien fleets began to move. Ships larger than cities. Weapons strong enough to break worlds. They moved toward Earth, confident, certain, unstoppable. But on Earth, things were already changing. Signals were going silent. Commands were being sent, not to attack, but to prepare, because humanity had heard the answer, and it was no. The old observer whispered one final time, to no one in particular. "You believe they fear war." He paused, a slow breath. "But you have no idea what happens when they stop holding back." Fade to black. Space above Earth should have been full of panic. It was not. It was quiet. Too quiet. The alien fleet arrived like a storm. Thousands of ships spread across the planet, blocking the stars. Massive shadows covered the blue world below. On their screens, Earth looked calm. No explosions. No missiles. No defense systems rising. Just silence. Inside the main command ship, Commander Verex stood with confidence. His tall, armored body reflected the light of the control panels. His sharp eyes scanned the planet. "This is disappointing," he said. One of his officers replied, "No resistance detected. Their military satellites are still active, but they are not firing." Verex let out a low laugh. "They already understand." "Good. This will be fast." Another officer spoke. "We are receiving a signal from the surface." "Play it." A human voice filled the room. "Calm. Clear. We do not want war. Please leave our system." Some officers chuckled. Verex tilted his head. "They still think they have a choice." He turned to his crew. "Begin Phase 1. Disable their sky." Orders moved quickly. Within minutes, alien ships released waves of energy. Human satellites began shutting down one by one. Communication lines flickered. Still no counterattack. No retaliation. On Earth, cities continued to function. Cars moved. Lights stayed on. People walked the streets. It looked normal. Too normal. Back on the command ship, an officer frowned. "Commander, something feels wrong." Verex glanced at him. "Explain." "There is no chaos. No panic signals. No emergency broadcasts. Even weak species react with fear." Verex looked back at Earth. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke. "They are accepting reality." But even as he said it, something felt off. Hours passed. Alien ships moved closer. Some entered low orbit. Others began scanning military locations. Then came the next step. "Deploy ground units," Verex ordered. Small drop ships broke away from the fleet and entered Earth atmosphere. They targeted major cities. New York, Tokyo, Paris, Delhi. Perfect places to show control. Inside one dropship, a squad of alien soldiers prepared for landing. Weapons ready. Armor locked. One of them asked, "Do you think they will fight?" The leader shook his head. "No, they already surrendered." The ship landed. The doors opened. The soldiers stepped out and froze. The city was empty. No people. No movement. Cars were abandoned in the streets. Doors left open. Lights still on in buildings. But not a single human. "Scan the area," the leader ordered. Sensors activated. Nothing. No life signs, one soldier reported. "That is impossible," the leader snapped. "This city holds millions." But it was true. Millions gone. The report was sent back to the command ship. Verex listened carefully. "Empty?" he repeated. "Yes, Commander." Completely empty. That was the first moment doubt appeared. Send more units, Barracks ordered. Check other cities. Reports came in quickly. London, empty. Beijing, empty. Moscow, empty. Every major location, abandoned. No signs of panic. No signs of destruction. Just gone. One officer spoke, his voice uneasy. Commander, where did they go? No one answered. Varex's confidence began to crack, just slightly. Track underground structures, he said. Check bunkers. Scans began, but results were strange. Many underground facilities were also empty, as if everything had been planned, as if humans knew this would happen. Far below, in hidden places no alien scan could reach, humans were watching, waiting, silent, prepared. Back in orbit, something else began to happen. Small disruptions. At first, they were minor. A ship system would flicker. A signal would cut for a second. Nothing serious. But then it increased. One officer shouted, "We are losing connection with Scout Unit 3. What happened? Varex demanded. No damage detected. They just disappeared from the network. Another voice came in. Commander, Scout Unit 7 is also offline. Varex's eyes narrowed. This is not possible. He turned to the control team. Find them. But there was nothing to find. No explosion. No signal. Just gone. On Earth, inside the empty city, one alien squad moved deeper into the streets. Their footsteps echoed. One soldier looked around nervously. I do not like this. Stay focused, the leader said. There is nothing here. At that exact moment, a sound, soft, behind them. They turned quickly. Nothing. Did you hear that? One whispered. Before anyone could answer, a flash, fast, invisible. One soldier dropped. No scream, no warning, just gone. The others raised their weapons. Show yourself, the leader shouted. Silence. Then another flash. Another soldier fell. Now panic started. They are here, someone yelled. But where? They fired into empty space. Nothing. The attack stopped, just as suddenly as it started. The remaining soldiers stood frozen, breathing hard, weapons shaking. They could not see the enemy. They could not track the enemy. They could not understand the enemy. Back in orbit, Varex received the emergency signal. His jaw tightened. Report. The message came through broken. Unknown attacker, invisible, fast. Then silence. The signal cut. Varex stared at the screen. For the first time, he did not speak. Around him, the command room was no longer calm. It was tense, uncertain. One officer finally said what everyone was thinking. Commander, this is not surrender. Varex slowly nodded. No, he said. His voice was lower now, more serious. This is something else. On Earth, hidden in shadows, a human voice whispered through a secure channel. Phase 1 complete. Another voice replied. Good. A pause. Then they chose control. Silence. Then the final words. Now we begin. High above the planet, the alien fleet remained powerful, still massive, still dangerous. But something had changed. They were no longer in control. And deep inside, they were starting to feel it. Fear, because the war they expected was not the war they got. And the enemy they thought was weak had not even shown itself yet. Fade to black. The silence was no longer calm. Now it felt alive. Commander Varex stood in the center of the command ship, watching the reports flood in. His strong posture was still there, but something inside him had changed. Confidence was slowly turning into caution. Status, he demanded. An officer answered quickly. We have lost 12 ground units. No clear cause. No visible enemy. Orbital scans? Varex asked. Nothing unusual. No large human forces detected. That made no sense. Varex clenched his fist. They cannot fight without being seen. But deep down, he was no longer sure. More reports came in. Commander, communication with Sector 9 has stopped. Commander, 2 ships report system failures. Commander, We are detecting interference. Varix looked up sharply. Interference? From where? The officer hesitated. We don't know. It's not coming from space. It's coming from the planet. That was impossible. Humans had lost their satellites. Their systems were disabled. They should not be able to reach the fleet. And yet, they were. Varric stepped closer to the main display. Earth rotated slowly in front of him, peaceful and blue. It looked harmless, but now it felt like a trap. Send more ground teams, he ordered. We need answers. On Earth, another alien unit moved through a different city. This one was darker. The power was out. Buildings stood like empty shadows. The soldiers stayed close together, weapons ready, eyes moving. Stay alert, the leader said. They are here. How do you know? One soldier asked quietly. The leader paused, then said one word. Feeling. They moved forward slowly. Every step echoed. Every sound felt too loud. Then, a voice, soft, calm, from nowhere. You were told to leave. The soldiers froze. Who said that? One shouted. No answer. Show yourself, the leader demanded. Silence again. Then the voice returned. Closer this time. You were given a chance. One soldier fired into the darkness. Energy blasts hit walls. Empty air, nothing else. They are playing with us, another yelled. Suddenly, the lights flickered, for just 1 second. But in that second, they saw something. A shape, a movement, fast, then darkness again. Contact, the leader shouted. But it was too late. One soldier was already gone. No sound, no body, just missing. Panic started to spread. They're not visible. They're not on scanners. What are we fighting? The leader tried to stay in control. Hold formation. Do not. He stopped because something was standing in front of him. A human. For the first time, they saw one clearly. The human wore dark armor. Smooth, silent, no lights, no markings. The helmet hid the face. Only 2 cold, glowing eyes stared back. The human did not speak, did not move, just watched. The alien leader raised his weapon. You. Before he could finish, the human was gone. Gone, like he was never there. Then the attacks began again. Fast, precise, unstoppable. Within seconds, the entire unit was erased. Back in orbit, the command room was no longer calm. It was filled with tension. Commander, an officer shouted. We intercepted a message. Play it. Varric said immediately. The message appeared on screen. Simple text. Human language. No signal source. No location. Just words. You were given a chance to leave. The room went silent. Varric stared at the message. His mind moved fast now. This was not random. This was not panic. This was planned. Every step, every move. Find the source, he ordered. We can't, the officer replied. It's everywhere. Varric turned slowly. Explain. The signal is not coming from one place. It's coming from multiple points across the planet at the same time. That meant only one thing. They are still connected, Varric said quietly. But how? Another officer asked. We shut down their systems. Varric looked back at Earth. They let us shut them down. That answer hit the room like a shock. They wanted us to think they were blind, he continued. They wanted us to come closer. No one spoke, because now it made sense. The empty cities, the silence, the missing people. It was not fear. It was strategy. Deep underground, hidden far below the surface. A human command center was active. Screens filled the room. Maps, signals, enemy positions. Everything was being tracked. A human officer spoke calmly. Enemy ground units reduced by 32%. Another replied, orbital interference increasing. Phase 2 is ready. At the center of the room, a commander stood, watching everything. Silent, focused. They still don't understand, someone said. The commander nodded slightly. They thought we would react, he said. But we planned. He looked at the screen showing the alien fleet. They came expecting surrender. A pause. Then they walked into preparation. Back in space, Varix felt something he had not felt in a long time. Uncertainty. Not fear yet, but close. He turned to his officers. All units switched to combat alert. No more assumptions. Yes, Commander. Deploy full surveillance. I want every movement tracked. Yes, Commander. And prepare heavy weapons. That order made some officers hesitate. Commander, against a species that has not shown full force? Varix looked at them. His voice was cold now. They already have. Silence filled the room, because they all understood this was only the beginning. On Earth, hidden in shadows, the same human soldier stood again, watching, waiting, listening. A quiet voice came through his comm system. Phase 1 complete. He replied with one word. Confirmed. Another voice followed. Proceed to Phase 2. The soldier looked up at the sky, at the massive fleet above. Then he said, they wanted war. A short pause. Then, now they will learn it. High above, the alien fleet still looked powerful, still controlled the skies, still had numbers, but control was slipping, slowly, quietly, and they could feel it, because the enemy was not running, not hiding, not surrendering. The enemy was choosing when to strike, where to strike, and how much to show, and that made them far more dangerous than anything the galaxy had seen before. Fade to black. The war changed without warning. There was no loud signal, no grand announcement, just a moment where everything shifted. Commander Varix felt it before he saw it. A strange tension filled the command ship. The air felt heavier. The crew moved faster, spoke less. Everyone was waiting for something. Then it happened. Commander! An officer shouted. Multiple system failures across the fleet. Varix turned sharply. Report. Navigation errors. Weapon systems not responding. Communication delays across all sectors. That was impossible. Their ships were protected. Their systems were advanced beyond anything humans should understand. Find the cause. Varix ordered. We are trying, but it's spreading. On the main screen, red warning signs began appearing across the fleet. One ship, then another, then dozens. Something was moving through their systems like a shadow. Fast, silent, precise. Is this a virus? One officer asked. No, another replied, voice shaking. It's controlled. That was worse, much worse. Varix's eyes narrowed. They're inside our systems. On Earth, hidden far below, the human command center was fully active. Dozens of operators worked in perfect coordination, every movement timed, every signal calculated. Orbital disruption at 45%, one reported. Enemy response slowing, said another. At the center, the human commander stood still, watching the data flow. Continue, he said calmly. No excitement, no anger, just control. A younger officer looked at him. Sir, they didn't expect this. The commander nodded. That's why it works. He looked at the main screen, showing the alien fleet struggling above Earth. They prepared for war, he said. A short pause. We prepared for them. Back in space, the first ship died, without explosion, without warning. It simply stopped. Lights out, systems gone, floating like an empty shell. Commander, we lost Ship 14, an officer shouted. How? Varix demanded. No damage detected. It just shut down. Before anyone could react, another ship went dark. Then another. Panic started to spread. This is not possible. They are not even firing. What is happening? Varix slammed his hand on the control panel, stabilized the fleet. But even as he gave the order, he knew the truth. They were losing control. Then came the next phase. On Earth in the dark streets, human units began to move, not hiding anymore, not waiting, hunting. Small teams, dressed in black advanced armor, moved like shadows. Their movements were smooth, silent, perfectly timed. They did not rush. They did not panic. They executed. One alien patrol moved carefully through a ruined district, weapons ready, fear clear in their movements. We should regroup, one soldier said. We cannot see them. The leader shook his head. Hold position. He stopped because something landed behind them. Soft, almost silent. They turned. Too slow. A human stood there. This time, not hiding. The alien leader fired. The human moved. Not fast. Perfect. The shot missed. In one motion, the human closed the distance. One strike. Clean. Efficient. The alien fell. The others fired wildly. The human disappeared into the shadows again. Not running. Controlling. One by one, the patrol was removed. No noise. No wasted movement. No mercy. Back in orbit. Things were getting worse. Commander, we are losing entire sectors. Ships are going offline faster than we can respond. Ground units are not reporting back. Varix felt it now. Not doubt, not uncertainty. Fear, real fear. This is not war, one officer whispered. Varix slowly spoke. No. He stared at the screen, at the planet below. This is control. Another message appeared. Same format, same unknown source. It filled the main display. You chose control. The crew stared at it. No one spoke. Then the message changed. Now you will face consequence. A cold silence followed. In the human command center, the atmosphere remained calm, focused, measured. Phase 2 complete, an operator said. Enemy fleet efficiency reduced to 51%. The commander nodded. Begin Phase 3. A pause. One officer hesitated. Sir, this will escalate fully. The commander looked at him. They already escalated, he said. Then quietly, we are just finishing it. Back in space, Varix stood still, watching everything fall apart. Ships were failing. Units were disappearing. Systems were compromised. And the enemy was still barely visible. They are not fighting like any species we have seen, one officer said. Varix nodded slowly. They are not reacting, he said. They are executing. That word changed everything, because reaction is emotional. Execution is planned. And that meant one thing. Humans had already decided how this war would end. On Earth, human units moved deeper into alien-controlled zones. Faster now, more direct. The hidden phase was ending. The visible phase had begun. An alien stronghold, set up just hours earlier, suddenly went dark. Lights cut, systems failed, doors locked. Inside, soldiers panicked. What is happening? Then, the doors opened. Slowly, humans entered, not rushing, not shouting, walking, like they owned the space. And in that moment, it became clear. They did. Back in orbit, Varix gave a new order, one he never thought he would give. All units, defensive formation. The room froze. That order meant one thing. They were no longer attacking. They were trying to survive. Far below, the human commander watched this change. He saw the alien fleet shifting positions, pulling back, trying to protect itself. He gave a small nod. They are learning, he said. A short pause. But too late. The same human soldier from before stood on top of a dark building, looking up at the sky. Ships burned slowly in orbit, falling apart without fire, without glory. He spoke softly into his calm. Enemy adapting. The reply came. Expected. He looked at the stars, then said, They still don't understand. A pause. Then the final line. They think this is our full strength. Silence. Then, it's not. Above Earth, the alien fleet was still there, still large, still dangerous, but no longer in control, because they had finally seen it. Humanity's other side. Not loud, not emotional, not reckless, but cold, precise, and unstoppable. And the worst part? This was only the beginning. The alien fleet was no longer a symbol of power. It was breaking. Slowly, then all at once. Commander Varix stood in the command center, surrounded by flashing warnings. Red lights filled the room. Alarms echoed without stopping. Report, he shouted. But this time, the reports were not controlled. They were chaos. Sector 12 lost. 5 ships offline. Ground command is not responding. Navigation systems failing. Every voice carried the same thing. Fear. Varric clenched his jaw. His mind tried to hold control, but the situation was slipping too fast. "This is impossible," one officer whispered. "No," Varric said, his voice low. "This is happening." He looked at the main screen. Earth still looked calm, blue, peaceful, untouched, and yet it was destroying them. Hours earlier, the alien forces had believed they were winning. Now they were trying to survive. "Commander," an officer said carefully, "we need to pull back, regroup, rebuild formation." Varric didn't answer immediately. Pull back? From a species they called weak? That thought burned inside him. But reality was clear. "We regroup," he said finally. The order spread across the fleet. Ships began moving away from Earth's surface, trying to create distance, trying to regain control. But humans had already predicted this. Deep underground, the human command center was still calm, focused. Every screen showed movement, enemy positions shifting, retreat patterns forming. "They're pulling back," an operator said. The human commander nodded. "Expected." Another officer spoke. "Should we allow retreat?" The room became slightly quieter. This was an important moment. The commander looked at the data, then said, "No." A pause. "They came to control." His voice remained steady. "They do not leave without understanding." Back in space, the alien fleet started forming defensive lines. Ships grouped together, weapons powered up, trying to create strength again. For a moment, it almost worked. The chaos slowed. The fleet stabilized. Officers began to breathe again. "We are recovering," one said. But that moment did not last, because then everything hit at once. Human attacks increased, not randomly, perfectly timed. Ships that moved into formation suddenly lost power. Communication lines collapsed again. Navigation systems began showing false data. "Commander, we are receiving incorrect coordinates. Multiple ships are colliding." On the main screen, 2 large alien ships crashed into each other. No human weapons, no visible attack, just control taken away. Varric stared in shock. "They are controlling the battlefield," he said. Then came the ground reports, the few that still existed. "Emergency. Human units have breached Stronghold Delta. Command post under attack. We cannot hold. Signal lost." Another message came. "We are surrounded." Then silence. Every position they tried to secure was being removed, one by one. Clean, efficient, final. In one alien base on Earth, soldiers gathered in fear. This base was heavily protected, walls reinforced, weapons ready. They believed maybe here they could hold. The leader spoke. "They are just a species. They bleed like any other." But even as he said it, his voice was not strong. Suddenly, the lights went out. Darkness. Complete. "What happened?" someone shouted. "No power. Backup systems not responding." Then, a sound. A door opening. Slowly, one soldier aimed his weapon. "Fire!" the leader yelled. Energy blasts filled the room, but when the lights flickered back on, no one was there. Just empty space. Confusion. Fear. Then, the attacks began. Not loud. Not chaotic. Precise. One soldier dropped. Then another. Then another. No wasted movement. No missed strikes. The humans moved through them like shadows. Within minutes, the base was silent. Back in orbit, Varric finally understood something. Something he should have listened to. "They're not trying to win," he said quietly. An officer looked at him. "Commander?" Varric's eyes stayed on the screen. They already decided the outcome. That truth settled heavily in the room. This was not a battle anymore. It was a final step of a plan. Then the final message came. Clear, strong, impossible to block. It appeared on every screen, every ship, every system. "We asked for peace." The crew froze. No one moved. The message continued. "You chose control." Varric felt something deep inside his chest tighten. Then the last line appeared. Now you face consequence. Silence. Complete silence. The attacks reached their peak. Entire sections of the fleet went dark. Ships lost control and drifted into space. Weapons refused to fire. Command stopped responding. Everything they depended on was gone. "Commander, we cannot continue," an officer said. It was not a suggestion. It was reality. Varric stood still. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then finally, signal retreat. The room froze. That word had never been used by his kind before. "Commander," someone whispered. Varric closed his eyes for a second, then opened them. Stronger. Clear. "We retreat." Across space, the alien fleet began to pull away, not in strength, but in defeat. Ships turned from Earth, moving away, broken, damaged, silent. On Earth, the human command center watched carefully. "They are retreating," an operator confirmed. The room stayed quiet, waiting. The commander looked at the data, then nodded once. Hold position. No cheering, no celebration, just calm control. The same human soldier stood once again under the night sky. He watched the fleet leaving, slowly disappearing. A voice came through his comm. "They're running." He replied simply. "They learned." A pause. Then the voice asked, "Do we stop?" The soldier looked at the sky one last time, then answered, "Yes." Far away, the broken fleet moved through space. Commander Varric stood alone now. The noise of the command room had faded. Only quiet remained. He looked back at Earth. Small, blue, peaceful, but now he knew the truth. "They were not weak," he said softly. "They were holding back." Deep in space, the old observer watched the retreat. He had said this would happen, but even he did not expect it like this. He spoke quietly to himself. They did not just defend. A slow breath. They taught. And Earth remained where it always was. Silent, still, but no longer underestimated. Because now the galaxy knew. Humanity did not seek war. But when war came to them, they ended it. The war ended without celebration. There were no victory parades. No loud announcements. No cheering crowds. Just silence. Earth looked the same as it always had. Blue, calm, peaceful, as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Far from Earth, the broken alien fleet drifted through space. Ships were damaged, systems barely working. The once powerful formation was gone. Now it was scattered, weak, quiet. Inside the main command ship, Commander Varric stood alone. The command room, once filled with voices and control, was now empty. Most systems were offline. The lights were dim. Only a few screens still worked. He stared at one of them. It showed Earth, small, distant, untouchable. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "We were wrong." No one answered, because there was no one left to argue. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The same message repeated everywhere. The fleet that never lost had been defeated. Species that once feared the Council now whispered something new. How? How did a divided, emotional species defeat them? Many did not believe it. Some refused to accept it. But the truth could not be hidden. The proof was there. A broken fleet returning home. In the Galactic Council chamber, the same leaders gathered again. But this time, the room felt different. No laughter. No confidence. Only tension. The blue hologram of Earth floated again in the center. But now no one saw it as weak. The old observer stood in his usual place. Silent. Watching. The council leader spoke first. His voice was slower now. "We misjudged them." No one disagreed. Another member asked, "What are they?" The question was simple, but no one had a simple answer. The old observer finally stepped forward. "I told you before," he said calmly. "They are not peaceful because they are weak." The room stayed quiet. They are peaceful because they choose to be. He looked at all of them, one by one. And now you have seen what happens when that choice is taken away. Suddenly, the chamber lights shifted. A signal was coming in. Unknown source, but familiar pattern. The room became still. "Display it," The leader ordered. A human figure appeared. The same ambassador. Calm, composed, unchanged. But now, the atmosphere was different. Before, they looked down on him. Now they listened. No one interrupted. No one laughed. The human spoke. Greetings. His voice was steady. Clear. We are aware that your forces have retreated. A short pause. We will not pursue. That sentence alone changed the room. Some aliens looked surprised. Others looked relieved. The human continued. Humanity does not seek conquest. Another pause. We do not seek control. He looked directly at the council. But we will not accept it either. No anger. No threat. Just truth. The council leader spoke carefully. You have proven your strength. The human did not react. You could have destroyed our fleet completely, the leader continued. Why did you stop? The question hung in the air. Everyone waited. The human answered simply, because we chose to. That answer hit harder than any weapon. The human stepped slightly forward. We came to you with peace. His voice remained calm. We gave you a choice. A pause. You made yours. The room was silent. Then the final words came. Slow, clear, heavy, and now you understand. The signal ended. The human disappeared, but his presence stayed. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, one council member whispered. They held back all this time. The old observer nodded slowly. Yes. Another asked, why? The old one looked at Earth again. His voice was quiet. Because they know what happens when they don't. Back on Earth, life continued. Cities lit up again. People returned. Normal life resumed. But something had changed. Not fear, not anger, understanding. Humanity had shown its strength. But more importantly, it had shown its control. In a quiet location, deep within a secure facility, the human commander stood alone, looking at a screen. The alien fleet was now far away, no longer a threat. A voice came through. Conflict ended. He nodded slightly. Status: global system stable. Civilian population safe. A small pause. Then, good. The same soldier who fought in the shadows now stood under the open sky. No armor, no weapon, just a human. He looked up at the stars. Peaceful again. A voice in his ear asked, Do you think they learned? He thought for a moment, then answered, They understand enough. A pause. But they won't forget. Far across the galaxy, the old observer spoke one final time to the council. Remember this moment. All eyes turned to him. He continued, Humanity is not the strongest species. A pause. But it may be the most dangerous. Silence, because it holds power. Another pause, and chooses when to use it. Final scene. Earth, floating in space. Calm, beautiful, silent. A soft human voice speaks. We are humanity. A pause. We offered peace. Another pause. You forced us to show you the alternative. Silence. Then the final line. And now you know the difference.